All right, we are live back on the Andre Duke Show. How is everybody doing? Sorry for the late start. It's been an interesting couple of days. Appreciate everybody out there. Also, can you do us the biggest favor and hit that like and subscribe button? That helps us a ton over here at the podcast, trying to grow it. First off, we'll lead off. Phone lines are open. If you want to call throughout the show, number to call is 260-255-4069 is the number to call. So there is that. Getting that out of the way. Also, some interesting transfer portal news. Going to go over some kind of year-end rewards that I had my eyeball on, thinking that quite possibly, that would be something you guys may have some interest in. But outside of that, I think we'll keep it relatively light tonight. Just some topics that caught my eye. So there is that. But first off, I want to start off with Indiana. And if you're wondering, the number is on the ticker below. I'll put the graphic up of the phone line is open. I am your host, Andre Duke. So there is that. So CFB Alerts puts out a very fascinating stat today. A lot of people talking about whether Indiana's schedule is any good or not. They have beaten 13-1 Oregon. They've beaten 12-2 Ohio State, 11-4 Alabama, 10-3 Old Dominion, 10-3 Kennesaw State, 9-4 Illinois, and 9-4 Iowa. So when I look at that, it tells me that Indiana has beaten 7 teams that have won 9+ games. So I think that's something to take into consideration. Also, Old Dominion didn't even play for their conference championship. Kennesaw State won CUSA. And then you had they played Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, and Alabama was runner-up in the SEC. So I think for all intents and purposes, Indiana had a hell of a run, and that's a hell of a schedule. Some people may knock Old Dominion and Kennesaw State, but Kennesaw State at the division that they're the league that they play in, they won the damn thing. So Indiana has beaten 2 conference runner-up teams and a conference champion. So we'll see. Just something of that sort going on out there in the world. I know there's been a lot of debate upon Indiana's schedule. So there is that. I just looking at it as a whole, I mean, 7 teams with 9 victories. That's pretty impressive, I think, for anybody. And then you have all the other stuff going on, and then there's all kinds of kinds going on out there when it comes to news, transfer portal, and all of that stuff. I find it very fascinating, to say the least, but as I'm looking at some other stuff here, just trying to get some stuff rectified here, and then we'll go to the transfer portal percentages by the college football teams. I believe CFB Home posted this. It's roster construction 2025 CFP field. And this goes through the starters. Georgia, 90% of their starters are by recruits, 10% transfers. Ohio State, 72%, 28%. The second number is the starters by transfer. Oklahoma was 68% high school recruits, 32% transfer portal. Alabama, 62%, High school recruits, 37% transfer portal. Oregon, 57% to 42%. I think that as we more and more get through these numbers, I think the more and more fascinating and interesting it's going to get. James Madison, 57%, 42%. A&M, 55% to 44%. There's kind of that in a nutshell. Miami, this is where it flips. Miami, 46% to 53%. Tulane, 44% to 55%. Texas Tech, very interesting on their percentage here, 36% to 63%. Indiana, 34% to 65%. And then Ole Miss at the bottom with the roster construction, 33.7% are high school students or high school recruits, 66.3% are from the transfer portal. And I think when you look at that as a whole, it makes it very, very fascinating on roster construction, to say the least. I think that, that's the majority of the way Kiffin has built his program and built the team down there at Oxford. Obviously, Lane left. Lane leaves, goes to LSU, but one of the more fascinating things, some of the big names that Ole Miss has re-signed for this is very interesting, because Kewan Lacey and Trinidad Chambliss, pending the waiver decision, which I don't think you get Tom Mars in. I don't think you get Tom Mars involved unless it is a slam dunk, because he's been the guy that's represented a ton of people that have beat the NCAA. I'm not 100% sure if he was Pavia's attorney, but looking at it with the Ole Miss roster, Trinidad Chambliss resigns, Kewan Lacey resigns, Prince, well, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, no disrespect, but I would butcher it. He's resigning. Will Eccles resigned. Bryce Sanders. The list goes on and on the people that have re-signed with Ole Miss, which I think that is a huge positive on their end of it. I think that for a lot of what you're looking at here is, I think Lane Kiffin's coming to the stark reality of he has, how do I want to put this into context? I think when he got the LSU job, I think he made a bunch of promises to them to bring a majority of the roster. I mean, something could happen depending upon if those contracts are enforceable or not. But I think you're going to see a big influx of guys staying at Ole Miss where they're comfortable. And I think Walker Jones and the Grove Collective has done a hell of a job to retain the talent in the roster maintenance. And I think Ole Miss isn't completely out of the woods yet. They still have a playoff game to play, but I just feel like that this program is trending in the right direction. Pete Golding done a heck of a job, on the verge of possibly winning 3 playoff games. I think Coach JB pointed this out when it comes to Lane to Pete Golding. If Pete Golding beats Miami, I'm just saying, if he beats Miami, I'm not going out on a limb like I did with a couple other things, but if he goes out and beats Miami, that is his 3rd playoff victory to Lane Kiffin that hasn't even been to the playoffs, because I'm not counting this. It's just some people can say, well, this is Lane's team, blah, 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 blah. You can call it whatever you want, but at the end of the day, it's still Lane Kiffin is not the head coach at Ole Miss. He is at LSU. So I think that the folks that are out there that are at LSU that are wanting some big earth-shattering news, well, you're not getting it as of this moment. Could things change? Yeah, things can change. That is a distinct possibility, but the way it's trending right now, I think Ole Miss is going to come out of this as winners. A lot of people gave Keith Carter a bunch of flack about leaving Kiffin as the head coach, but I think for all intents and purposes, Lane Kiffin is kind of wearing some egg on the face as well. I think that is a very distinct possibility, to be honest. Also, in other news, Charlie Weiss Jr. says he has no interest in going to the NFL. I think it's very fascinating. And then he gave a quote that says, "I'm fired up about finishing the job at Ole Miss and the future at LSU." I think Charlie is a heck of a ball coach. He finally gets to step out from under Lane Kiffin's shadow. I think that is very important to him. I think that a lot of it is that he's got to find his own identity. And when, you're the coach, or when you're Lane Kiffin's offensive coordinator, they're going to call it the Kiffin offense, kind of like they did with Urban Meyer for all those years, the vaunted Urban Meyer offense when Dan Mullen was pulling the strings and all of that. So I think it'll be very, very big for Charlie. And this is a big stage for him, gets him a time to shine where, other guys at the profession, I mean, he's a young dude. He's around my age, and it really, really, I think is going to put leaps and bounds on his career because of all the stuff that's gone on at Ole Miss, the Kiffin business. And I think that this is a chance for him to kind of take the reins of his own career and show the world what he can do. So there is that. Also, in other news, it came out a couple days ago, the last time I was on the podcast, that Kenny Minchey was heading to Nebraska. All of a sudden, he has flipped and is heading to Kentucky. Wish Kenny the best there. I think that it's fascinating, to say the least, that's where we've ended up. I think that, it's very, very possible for Kenny to win that job at Kentucky. I think for people that are going to take the risk and go to Kentucky, I believe it's a free shot for them. You kind of got to see what the makeup is there at at Big Blue Nation. So I think the Kentucky fans are starved of a winner. I think it's very fascinating, to say the least. So there's that. Also, if you're new here, as we're at the almost 15-minute mark into this, appreciate everybody watching. But phone line is open. Also, do us the biggest favor, hit that like and subscribe button. That helps us a ton on the podcast. Appreciate you. Also, if you want to call, get your call in now. That will dictate on how long the show goes. Caller volume, also a factor there. So appreciate everybody, and we'll continue on. Next thing, it's fascinating. I believe Front Office Sports put this out. In 1987, SMU gets the death penalty for paying players upwards of $61,000. Fast forward 40 years later, top transfer quarterback gets a $5 million deal. The kid from Cincinnati cashing in. I think that is how different the sports world has changed, how different everything else has changed. With all the changing factors out there, I think that is. I mean, I believe the athletes should get compensated. I know I'm going to get crucified for this, but I think they should get paid something. It's not them getting paid that I have that big of an issue with. It is more of the immediate eligibility is what is the big crushing blow there. That is the detriment to college football. So there is that. What also in other news, Washington starting quarterback, this broke a little bit ago. Damon Williams is entering the transfer portal, and he's entering with a no contact. So somebody has tampered with him. I don't know exactly who or what, but somebody got to him to get him in the portal, and maybe he just got in the portal to see what's out there. I don't think Jedd Fisch is going to hold it against him. I don't know how strong. I don't know the ins and outs. I don't follow Washington that close, but am I shocked that he got in the portal? Kind of. But at the end of the day, on the players' end of it, the guys that had good years are going to test that market and see what they're worth. When you have instantaneous free agency, this is the system that has been put in place, and the kids are just leveraging the portal and leveraging their they are leveraging their name, image, and likeness, if that's what you want to call it. So there is that. Also, on the Michigan State side of things, Aiden Childs lands at Northwestern, which is kind of interesting. Don't know what the thought process is behind that, but Northwestern, kind of another one of those schools that they're desperate for anything, trying to get a winner. I think that is something that's very, very high on Northwestern's list of things to do. Get a quarterback, try to bottle together and put a good year together so they can, show some proof of concept in recruiting. Can't blame Northwestern. Maybe they're coming off and spending some shekels, which they have been. They're building that new stadium. Northwestern has done a lot up there to improve the facilities, in my opinion. But they have academic standards and all of that stuff that's going on up there. Also, let me look before I open up the TikTok live. Carnell Tate, Ohio State wide receiver, hitting the NFL draft. No shock by that. He's mocked as a top 10 pick. I don't think there's any shock there by anybody. And then also true freshman 5-star receiver Quincy Porter of Ohio State is going to hit the portal again, or not hit the portal again, but hit the portal for the first time. So, and then Ohio State's lost 2 freshman receivers plus Carnell Tate. They've got to reload. I think for the longest time there was a log jam in that wide receiver room. You minus Brian Hartline, and some things are shaking there on the Buckeye tree. So we'll see what Ohio State does. Maybe they got guys waiting in the wings that those dudes just weren't gonna play. And the big thing is that if you're trying to go to the NFL, you got to play. Can't be buried on the depth chart, but just depends upon how it's going to roll. I think Ohio State still needs to hire an offensive coordinator as well. So we'll see about that. But also tons of college hoops on tonight. Currently got the quad box rolling. Texas, Tennessee. Tennessee's up big on Texas right now. Wisconsin putting the brakes to UCLA. And Auburn is up on A&M, and then Houston and Texas Tech just playing. They're already in the second half, 33-37. Houston at Houston's place, and they are on the board. So there's that. That's kind of what's out there cooking in the college hoops realm. Also, I wanted to talk about the biggest upset of the year goes to Nico and Jerry Neuheisel and the folks over at UCLA October 4th was I think they fired Franklin on the 5th. October 4th, biggest upset of the year goes to UCLA over Penn State. They were 24 and a half point dogs going into that game. So UCLA, shout out to those guys. Jerry Neuheisel, I believe, is at Northwestern. So we have that going on. That is the biggest upset of the year. But I also kind of low-key would like to throw Ole Miss in there in the college football playoff for beating Georgia. The stat guy that I had heard this stat via Chase Parham, Rebels 247. The Georgia Bulldogs in the last 5 years are 57-3. That is an unbelievable take. I believe Georgia's 2 losses are to Alabama and once to Ole Miss. Just an unbelievable reign of terror that Kirby has the dogs on. So I think Georgia isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So there is that. But possibly that's what we're looking at. And as the news keeps on trickling out, hold on, I'm going to get the TikTok live up. Give me 1 second. Apologize, everybody. Just trying to get the TikTok moving and a grooving. Also, phone line is open. Number to call 260-255-4069 is the number to call if you want to call now. I'm just getting some of this put together. But yeah, that's kind of what we got going. Doing that. So kind of putting it together. We also have Parker Livingston joined the Oklahoma Sooners today. Oh, well. Oh, yeah, that is right. In Portal News, I did see that Parker Livingston did join the Sooners. Also, just in, Charlie Weis traveling. Oh, sorry, I'm sending a text. But Charlie Weis Jr. traveling with the Ole Miss Rebels to Arizona. That's just in via ESPN. Got the Carnell Tate stuff, and then just filtering through some of the other stuff that I had seen, and then also what I wanted to put out there. What I wanted to put out there as well, the injuries. I believe I would have to pull up. Let me pull this up. I'm looking for this. The trying to find the reputable site. Trying to get this done, but the injuries that Oregon is sustained. I'm trying to find the availability report. I don't know if that is going to give me what I'm looking for. I think I'm going to have to go to ESPN to get that accomplished. But also, we are live on TikTok as well. Bear with me here while I am looking for the college football playoff stuff. What do I want? There's that. Sorry, I'm getting there, folks. Takes a little bit, but that's what we're looking at. Looking for the availability report. I think this should give me what I'm looking for. But yeah, Oregon has a ton of guys out. They were at least listed on their availability report. I don't think anything with that is official yet, but I'm really trying to find it because I seen a graphic where they had it listed for Oregon, Indiana, but it has since disappeared. Maybe if I search it a different way, because I thought maybe Pete Thamel had put it out. That's what I'm looking for. Looking for it. That's what I'm looking for. I think I found it. So yes, Oregon has listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Evan Stewart, Ebno, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 guys on Oregon's injury report. Very fascinating stuff. And what do we have here now that I'm back over to the stream? The Niners have injuries this week in the playoff game. Yeah, that is very true. And then, yes, John Harbaugh fired in Baltimore today. I am sure there's going to be no shortage of people that are going to go out and try to hire him. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I think his agent said he got contacted by 7 teams this morning. So there's that. There's also, as I'm looking through it, just the amount of transfer portal kids that are out there still. Trying to get all of this deciphered as quickly as possible, and then we'll go over to ESPN.com on what they have on headlines. But I do think it's fascinating that Trinidad Chambliss has re-upped with Ole Miss. I think there's something to be said about that. I think there's a lot of people not in the LSU camp not really thrilled about that. Jordan Davidson, the running back, I believe is a huge one. Yeah, I agree with you on that, Scott. That's probably I think that's their starter. Jordan Davidson, the Riggs kid, and Evan Stewart. So Oregon going to be playing shorthanded. I think somebody also reported that Jordan Davis has a broken clavicle. Will likely not play. It's very likely will not play the rest of the playoffs. So there is that. Although the initial report can change, but I think that's huge if he's got a broken clavicle. That is not conducive. Also, this just in, developing story by ESPN.com. Go ahead and get that out there. As I had mentioned earlier, Damon Williams Jr. said on social media Tuesday night that he's entering the transfer portal, a move that comes just days after he agreed to return to the Huskies. I have to do what's best for my family and future. He wrote, Washington, I guess, is looking to take legal action against the young man. What do we got here? Hope the Eagles get a great player when they draft. Yeah, typically the Eagles do because they're an outstanding drafting team. So there's that. But yeah, I guess they're planning on taking legal action against the kids. So that could be fascinating. Also, as the college hoops cycle begins to turn, first of the year opens up the conference play, especially the Big Ten, ACC, or SEC, Big 12. Texas Tech hanging in there with Houston. Texas A&M coming back on Auburn. I would say it's in Stevens Pearl's best interest to win that game. Also, if you guys want to hop in and join the conversation, the number to call is 260-255-4069. And also, I would like to hear from you guys on what you think the Texas Tech may win in the playoffs. I think next year, I don't think Texas Tech is going anywhere, but that's just my opinion. Here comes the rating some of the biggest disasters of what ESPN has out there. They have Clemson number 1. Also, if you're a fan base of any of these schools and you want to hop in and call, number to call is on the ticker below. Also, 260-255-4069 is the number to call. So Clemson rated number 1. I don't disagree with that. Clemson had all the eggs in the row. Cade Klubnik didn't work out. Penn State number 2. Same thing, had their quarterback in place. It was a big deal when Drew Aller committed to coming back after that big-time loss that James Franklin had to Notre Dame, the eventual national champion runner-up. Very, very interesting stuff. Indiana should be one of them. This is disasters. People that teams that did not show up in the regular season. 3 is LSU. Can't disagree with that. They had Nussmeier coming back, so that was a big deal to them, and it just didn't. The plan did not come to fruition for LSU. Brian Kelly obviously fired. James Franklin obviously fired. Out of the top 4 in this, Franklin and Kelly, 2 out of the 4 lose their job. And then they have Texas on this. They wanted to say that, Arch Manning was kind of the favorite to win the Heisman coming in, and he just didn't live up to the expectations. They dropped the game in Gainesville, and I think people underrated how good Florida really was, but inevitably Billy Napier out at Florida, John Summerall in, so we'll see how that shakes out. Also, the cutting of DJ Lagway, and then Austin Simmons, I believe today or yesterday, signed with Missouri. So quarterbacks on the move. I want Seth here wants a Indiana Miami championship. I think you're going to get a Indiana Ole Miss championship, but we will see. Nothing set in stone. I gotta look and see who is the Thursday night game and who is the Friday night game. That's kind of what I'm looking at. Ole Miss Miami is Thursday. Indiana Oregon is Friday. So there is that. Also, teams that had high expectations. I'm just kind of looking at ESPN's list and seeing what they have. Wow, Texas A&M storms back and is beating Auburn right now. So there is that. South Carolina and Shane Beamer, they had huge expectations, wanting to get to the college football playoff. Lenore Sellers, Dylan Stewart just did not get there, had an abysmal season. Florida was kind of the same way with DJ Lagway. They're number 6 on the list. It just did not pan out for them. Very, very interesting, to say the least. Billy Napier was fired after going 3-4, but he did have a win over Texas, so I think that should count for something. he is the new head football coach at James Madison. We'll see what Billy can do there. I think he'll probably take 3 years of winning big there, and then he'll be back on the national landscape looking for another job. It's just how the cycle goes. Somebody will take a chance on him. But also in the mix here was Kansas State. Kansas State got off to an abysmal start. They dropped that game in Ireland. A lot of controversy. I know we talked about Avery Johnson announcing that he came back. I'm sure it was a tumultuous season. If you look at what Kansas State tried to build upon from last year, they thought having Avery back was going to be a gigantic leaps and bounds better for them, and it just did not materialize. It was very fascinating, to say the least. You had the post-game fight with Avery Johnson's dad and brother outside the stadium in Ireland. If that was any indication of how the season was going to go, I think it summed it up right there in week 0. Dad-brother fight, and it just did not pull what they thought it was going to. So there's that. Also, Auburn loses another DB. He's going to Clemson. Dabo using that transfer portal, leveraging it to his ability. Michigan State loses a kid to Kansas. It is very, very interesting out there when it comes to the portal. And then Colorado loses a defensive lineman. Brandon Davis Swain has committed to Texas A&M. So Mike Elko and the boys out there doing some work on the old recruiting trail. I think that one thing that this system has put in place is the simple fact of, if you don't make the playoffs, you can leverage the portal as much as you want because you're not really doing anything. High school recruiting, the early signing period's over, and most of the big-time kids have already committed. They're getting ready to enroll for spring ball, whatever that's going to look like in the coming future, but there is that. Also, getting back to the list that ESPN has got from or put up for us. What's up, Joe? Joe out there on the West Coast, out there in fine weather. But yeah, as I'm getting to the list, Deion Sanders in Colorado are number 8 on the biggest college football disasters. As I'm looking up at the write-up that they have on this, they had to replace Shador, they had to replace Travis, they had a lot of drop-off at the quarterback position. Offensive coordinator got booted, Pat Shurmur, for whatever reason. Stuff happened to him. I'm not 100% sure on that. They lost basically after the week 7 upset, then packed it in, losing their last 5 games by an average of 40 to 15 points. Sanders finished 3-9 and faces yet another roster rebuild in 2026 to build optimism where it's heard. So I think Deion's looking at an uphill battle. He lost his I don't know if he lost him, but I think he parted ways with his player personnel guy. If you watch 0 to 60, Matt McChesney's the utmost expert on Colorado. That is a well-connected guy up there in Boulder. So if you're a big Colorado fan and you watch this, go follow Matt McChesney. He's way more versed in the X's and O's and the things going on at Boulder than I'll ever be. Former NFL player, also played 2 ways in the NFL, played offensive line and defensive line. Played for the Jets, Dolphins, and Broncos. So Matt's a hell of a offensive. He's basically an offensive line guru. And I don't mean internet guru. I mean like that guy can do Jedi mind stuff with the offensive line. because he's got breakdowns and all kinds of stuff. So Sanders stayed at the top. He isn't really there yet. Well, I think the Deion stuff is that he hired a bunch of friends, and it's just not panning out for him, in my opinion. But moving on the list, I don't know if you could really put Boise State on this list. They had a disappointing season. I think they ran into a buzzsaw. I didn't think anybody was going to think USF was going to be that good. But I know up there in Boise State, they have major expectations for that program, tons of winning throughout the years. And that's just something that they've always done up there at Boise ever since I could remember with Chris Peterson. They've always had outstanding kids. They won a Fiesta Bowl on the Statue of Liberty? Boise didn't get their CC. Yeah, and then also for some other reason they put Tennessee on this list. I think that I know I'm probably going to hear people booing me through the through the microphone here, but I would not put Tennessee on this list. I think Josh Heupel did a hell of a job for what he was dealt and what he had to deal with. Getting out of the Nico business. We'll see. A lot of it's gonna depend on how Nico plays with Bob Chesney this year, if Nico inevitably made the right decision. So they lose their starting quarterback at the end of spring. They pick up Joey Aguilar. Basically, Heupel has to patch the offense together with a guy that's got to learn a whole offense relatively in 3 months. Joe Long comes in with Tennessee is your typical overrated SEC team. I think Tennessee would have been better if they would have had Nico. I think he would have made drastic strides this year. But here's the telling sign: Tennessee goes 8-5, and they went 0-5 against teams with a winning record. There's no ways around that. They had Georgia on the ropes, and Georgia said never die. The missed field goal. It's tough. And then, Joe Milton. Yeah, Milton went to the NFL. I mean, at least this year we didn't have to see a bunch of highlights of Joe Milton throwing the football. So there's that. Also on this list, SMU. It's hard for me to put SMU on this, even though they play in the ACC, which is, they almost won the conference their first year in it. I believe SMU went 2-2. I believe they lost a heartbreaker to Baylor, which put them in critical mass right away. They dropped one to Wake Forest. I know off the top of my head. It just was not. It just didn't line up this year for Rhett Lashlee. And then there was all that speculation about him going to Arkansas. But I think inevitably I may get crucified for this later, but my take on it is I think Rhett Lashlee made the right decision by staying at SMU because they have tons of funds at SMU. They got a lot of fun tickets, and I think he can build something special there. It's just the fact that he's got to be able to go in there and compete, and they have to give him the resources year to year for him to contend for top talent in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. When you have Houston, that is now a viable option for kids with Willie Taggart down there. I think they're building something special in Houston. A lot of people are on Willie because he's a little bit older. I'm just telling you, I think as long as Willie can recruit the Dallas-Fort Worth area and keep a lot of those Houston kids at home and not lose them to A&M, not lose them to Texas, and not lose them to LSU, I think that cuts into other teams' talent pools when Houston is relevant, especially SMU being relevant. Some people may disagree with me on that, but I just feel like it drastically cuts into other teams' talent pools. And, you can agree to disagree on it, but that's just something that's going to happen. So SMU on the list at 11. Some other teams that had higher expectations. I hate to throw this out there because I think this this school completely mismanaged it. They did not help Sam Pittman. I think Arkansas is an F- for the year. I think Hunter Yurachek should have gotten fired after they fire Sam Pittman and say, well, maybe we didn't give him the resources. Well, what did you think was going to happen when you give him no money to go out there and acquire talent? It's going to look like that. And then also, I think they put pressure on Sam to make changes on the defensive side of the ball, and he just did not do it because it was kind of one of those things that Sam was loyal to his staff, loyal to a T, and he said, if you want me to fire them, then fire me, basically. So after a 56-13 loss to Notre Dame, where it was a big-time advertised game at noon, and Sam Pittman just got blown out the water. They got outclassed. You could tell by the different level of athlete that Notre Dame had that day. But I don't think that is a complete indictment on Sam Pittman, to be 100% honest here, because I don't think they gave him money in the transfer portal to go out there and be competitive. When you put no resources into a program, you're not going to be competitive, period. Point blank. If I was the chancellor of that university, I would have went and had a meeting with Hunter Yurachek, and Sam Pittman sat down and said, what's going on? And if Sam Pittman said, well, Hunter isn't giving me resources, I would have said that the common denominator is the athletic director in this, in my opinion. Also, update on college hoops. Texas kind of fighting back a little bit. Auburn down 10 to Texas A&M. 4 minutes to go. We got a barn burner. And then also Texas Tech hits a big shot to go up on Houston right now. 8 minutes left in that. Wisconsin's relatively handling UCLA right now. I don't know if you guys even give a rat's ass about none of that. We got college football playoff games. But yeah, stay tuned. But that's just my thing. Ryan Silverfield in at Arkansas. I just don't think that, looking at it in its totality, I don't know if Ryan Silverfield, he better got some guarantees on paper. Texas Tech with another big shot on Houston. Wow. Texas Tech coming out here, putting it to the Cougs at home. This is a big game. This is a tournament-style game. I don't care what anybody says. I think Texas Tech is going to be there the second weekend of the tournament. I believe Houston's going to be there the second weekend of the tournament. So Houston answers back with another one. They're down 4, 7 minutes to go. We got a barn burner down there in Houston. Speaking of Houston, so I'm just giving some basketball commentary if anybody cares out there. Also, phone line is open if you want to talk. If not, that's cool. I'm going to keep going down the list of teams that were major disappointments. Number to call, 260-255-4069 is the number to call. Texas Tech's coach is absolutely losing his mind, but that's what we have going on right now. Sorry for the late start, everybody, as well. Just some things going on that just got after it late. I know that's my fault, and if you're watching this back, appreciate the watch back, and we will keep things moving and a grooving. The Northwestern running back has entered the transfer portal. Wisconsin has a guy enter the portal. It's just never ending on this portal business. I'm just trying to keep it between the lines here. Starting DB from Kentucky in the portal. I'm just looking at it. Kenny Minchie officially commits to Kentucky. I'm looking at old stuff, but we'll keep this moving and a grooving. But that's just my opinion on the whole Arkansas thing. Hopefully Ryan Silverfield has some guarantees up front and in writing to guarantee his budget to keep everything between the lines. They also have Wisconsin on this list. Wisconsin, if you would have told me pre-portal that Luke Fickell would have won big at Wisconsin, I would have totally bought it. I know there was Notre Dame people out there that were pissed when they hired Marcus Freeman and not Luke Fickell, but I think going back on it, I think Swarbrick made the decision on Marcus Freeman, and they made a good one. coming down to the wire. Oh, got a phone call. What's up, Joe?
Yes, sir. Are you still taking calls?
Oh yeah, just going down the list, my friend. Where we've landed
Where are you at?
we've landed on Wisconsin. Wisconsin
Notre Dame opener.
yes, landed on Wisconsin. Their season, they're ranked number 13 on disappointing season. What are your thoughts
13
on
in their conference?
No, out of I'm just reading down a list that ESPN published of teams that had disappointing years. They didn't live up to expectations.
Oh, I see.
I just
Yeah, when you were talking about, was that guy Yeoman? Was it? Who was it?
which team? Arkansas, Hunter Yurachek?
Yeah. You were saying that they didn't have the NIL, right?
Well, the Arkansas
My
thing.
point on that is, well, it's if you take a look at what Indiana has done, I mean, their NIL can't possibly spread out. Like 2 years ago, they took like 50 guys new, right? Transfers in.
Yes.
So even with all the money you can allowed to give out, and then NIL too, that's still 50 guys that, you know, they can't all get compensated. At least it's got to be a thing of you want to play for this coach and this coaching staff because you want to develop. You know, I think that's really still going to be at the heart of many of these kids that come up and are looking at these places to go. Like, you know, you can go to the elite if you're elite and you can get paid elite, but the majority of people are not in that position, right?
Right.
So what are you gonna do? You're gonna take a look at all these other variables, like education is a big one, right?
Yeah.
Well, it is for a lot of people, but you got to look at what they're coming into for coaching. You know, like Freeman makes me a little nervous in that, you know, he said I'll be back for 2026. Well, that doesn't give my heart much comfort to know it's only one more year that he's guaranteeing he's coming back for.
And
like he'd signed an extension, but that doesn't mean it. Apparently, you know, he can leave at any point if he wants. It sounds like.
well, on the Freeman stuff, for some of the things that I do know about it, if you're Marcus Freeman, why go to the NFL that's uncertain, right? You have built a hell of a reputation at the college level, especially being at Notre Dame. And you know, people argue
and you're one of the top, and now you're one of the top paid at college level.
Yes, you're one of the top paid guys. Now, where I get off the boat on Marcus Freeman is if CJ Carr is not the starting quarterback, which I think he's going to be outstanding next year. For all intents and purposes, he's going to be great. If CJ Carr decides to leave school early, which I don't know if he will, you'll have to see how the quarterback thing shakes out and what the NFL is telling him and all of that nonsense, right? If you're Marcus,
well, that's possible. I mean, you know, maybe Freeman's aligning himself with that idea. You know, maybe he's saying, "Well, I'll be back for one more year because I know CJ's coming back for one more year."
Right, right, and I think that's a big part of it. You have an established quarterback. You have him locked up. He's not going anywhere. So I think that was one of the reasons why Marcus decided to stay instead of going now to where he can kind of pick where he wants to go. The big thing is with him is that
his family.
Yes, is his family. So I think.
I mean, his wife would have to get all of his kids at all their different age levels and grade levels into various schools. You know, it'd be a lot of work for her.
Yeah. I mean, his oldest son, I believe, is going to wrestle at Cornell. So shout out to him. But
so that leaves about 4 more, right, to place.
Yeah. So, but as we talk about that, do you remember? I know we're going to go over revisionist history here, but there was a lot of people that were Notre Dame fans that were highly upset that they were highly upset when they did not hire Luke Fickell and they hired Marcus Freeman.
Oh, I know. They went crazy. I know.
But if you look at it from where you're sitting as Notre Dame fans, you made the right hire. And if you would have told me before the portal what Fickell built at Cincinnati, it was not going to translate to Wisconsin, I would have said you're crazy. But realistically, when you think about it, when you're at Cincinnati, you can sell the city. And I know people will disagree with me on this, but you can sell Cincinnati over Camp Randall. There's nothing at Camp Randall. It's not Cincinnati.
Yeah, but don't forget, Andre, that Fickell was coming in wanting to be a head coach, whereas Freeman came in as the defensive coordinator, right?
Right. But we all remember whenever Brian Kelly said, there is not a check big enough to get me out of Notre Dame. And we see where Brian Kelly's sitting at right now. So there's that. Also on this list, Brent Pray. I think this is one of the more fascinating things of the offseason that nobody's talking about. So Brent Pray fired at Virginia Tech, correct? You remember when he got put out at Virginia Tech. So
put out to pasture.
Yeah, he got put out to pasture. And I thought it was really strange when James Franklin started coming up at when James Franklin eventually became the leading candidate at Virginia Tech and they go ahead and hire him. It makes me wonder on one side of it, do you think James Franklin is now running the athletic department because he brings Brent Pray back as the defensive coordinator? The fired
Well, I would say probably his input is at that level, but he doesn't want any part of it. You know, he doesn't want extra work for nothing. So, you know, where his input in his voice will be listened to and probably, you know, closely. You know, they wanted him there, and
I think it was
he got there. So, yeah, they're going to appease him in every way that they can, but they also have to take into account the ADs looking at various other sports too.
Yeah, I just feel like James Franklin is kind of ruling the roost there, and I think it's one of the things that people aren't going to talk about, and I think that's why you haven't had a lot of the assistants that were over at Penn State with Brent Pray that were on the defensive side also went with him to Virginia Tech, and I think a lot of those guys got retained as well. So Franklin knew those guys, and I think that James Franklin might struggle in the beginning at Virginia Tech, but I don't know because he just got the Grunkemeyer kid that just committed to him. I think James Franklin's going to have a rolling ball of butcher knives coming out of the gate at Virginia Tech. They are a team that I got an eyeball on, especially being in Virginia. Yeah. That's a talent-rich area. So,
right.
So there's that. And then also, as I keep going down the list, Bill Belichick and North Carolina pop up on this list. Is anybody shocked that they had the write-up says that Bill Belichick and what he was building at North Carolina screamed 6-6, and it ended up being 4-8. I don't know.
Well, didn't they lose, like, wasn't Drake May there?
Yeah, they lost the last year of Mac Brown's.
That's huge.
The last year of Mac Brown's tenure, I believe I think he had another NFL quarterback, and then he had Drake May, and then they didn't, and then they got ravaged on defense in the portal.
Right.
And I don't think they put a lot. I mean, from when Belichick took over to Mac Brown, and I thought it was hilarious, North Carolina said they wanted to get younger, and then they go out and hire Belichick. And then Michael Lombardi didn't do them any favors at all by coining them the 33rd NFL team. But I don't know. We'll see. They just signed Billy Edwards Jr. away from Wisconsin. So I don't know. I think on the the stuff that's at Chapel Hill, they got to show me before I'm going to say, yeah, they're going to be nailed on. And plus, it's the ACC, so anything can happen. I think Clemson will be better next year. They'll have to see what they've got. And then also on the list, you have Auburn sitting at number 16. I think that one of the big things is that Hugh Freeze gambled on quarterbacks and he just didn't pick the right ones, and I just think it kind of fell apart on him. And as you can see from what's happened at Auburn, they wanted to go out and hire Alex Golesh, and I mean it's kudos to them, but Alex Golesh may go to Auburn and knock it out of the park, but I think there's going to be some growing pains off the top, in my opinion, when it comes to it at Auburn.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, but I think he'll be on a pretty fast learning curve for the Power 4 because he was that good. He was ready for it, So I think he'll be okay.
I think it won't
take him long. He's not gonna. In 5 years maybe, but that's 5 years at best that I think he'd need to get everybody in there and situated for what he wants. It's not going to just happen for him.
Not
at
that
the Power 4 level.
Not that I'm trying to vehemently disagree with you, Joe. I think realistically he has 3 years at Auburn, and if they don't see proof of concept and if it looks funny, it's going to get interesting out there. And also, here's another thing that's discounted. I know this is a basketball note. I know we're talking college football here, but as I'm looking at it right now, TCU is up on Kansas at Fog Allen, and they just hit a big 3 to go up 9 with 1:13 left. And I think that we're seeing the portal, and we're seeing a lot of things that are changing things in college sports. I think it changed basketball quicker than it's changing football. Kansas, when was the last time you could say Kansas was going to lose a home game to TCU? But although I think Jamie Dixon's an outstanding basketball coach, some people may disagree with that, but we'll see. But anyway, speaking of the Big 12, Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy. Do you think Mike Gundy was a victim of circumstance, that he did not adapt to the new system and it was a glaring weakness, and you could see that you would see kids constantly transferring out of his program and them not bringing in the same quality of kid?
Yeah.
I think
I'm having minor. Go ahead.
I think that it's interesting. 3 years ago, Mike Gundy was in the Big 12 championship game, and then that roster gets ravaged. And then I think the real crack in the dam came when they lost to South Alabama that year. When Oklahoma State lost to South Alabama, I believe they got blown out, and then he just never recovered. And then they lost some kids going into the portal that year, and then come out this year. And I think that what I remember watching it while I was doing the podcast, that Oklahoma State lost to Tulsa, and I'm like, he's done. I remember watching that on a Friday night and like, it's over for Gundy. And I mean, he was there forever at Oklahoma State, but I also think that they ignored NIL. I think they ignored a lot of things that make big time programs successful. They just ignored it. And you can't neglect the transfer portal. In my opinion, you just can't do it anymore. So I think that was the beginning of the end for Gundy. And we'll get through this list here.
Yeah.
I'm just calling out some of the notable teams. I mean, unless you really have a real temperature on Georgia State football, but I don't. But it comes down to,
you know what, Duke?
Yeah.
I have to run over. I have to run over to my neighbor before it gets a little too late for me here to knock on her door, but I want to bring her something. So I'm going to say goodbye now, and I'm going to catch you when I get right back in. I'll get back into the chat.
All right, sounds good, Joe. We'll talk to you. Appreciate you calling in, man.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. Appreciate Joe for always calling in. He always comes in and hangs out and enjoys the program. But also, before we get too deep into this, as I keep going down this list, if you're new here, do us the biggest favor, hit that like and subscribe button. Also, Auburn on the verge of losing. Wow. Texas getting blown out by Tennessee. The Rick Barnes firing just kind of looks worse and worse every year, in my opinion. But we'll see. I'm sure I'm going to watch Sean Miller's press conference. I think that'll be very, very fascinating, to say the least. But we'll see. But who knows where it's going? I just think the Rick Barnes thing at Texas just looks worse and worse every year. But as we keep going down the list here, UCLA was on the disappointing list. I don't know what their expectation was with Deshaun Foster. I just kind of feel like it was kind of up in the air for all intents and purposes, and I don't know where the buck stops on the blame game out there at UCLA. They're struggling in basketball. They're struggling in football. They're in a conference they don't belong in, and I can go out there and say that they don't belong in the Big Ten, and it's not by competitive advantage or anything like that. Geographically, it's just a whole bunch of horse shit, in my opinion, because you can't tell me that it's feasible for UCLA softball to travel to Minnesota one weekend and then they travel to Nebraska the next weekend. They're playing a cross-country schedule, and there's only 4 teams on the West Coast: UCLA, USC, Oregon, and Washington. And, you know, those were the big road trips when they had to go up north or go out to Arizona. It's just unbelievable. I don't like it. It just, you know, the diehard college football fan, we're getting ready for a conference game. Here comes Rutgers versus UCLA in Piscataway, New Jersey. It's just unbelievably stupid, in my opinion. But the Fox needed a bigger inventory of games, so whatever. They could do what they want. Also, as Joe called in, phone line is open. Number to call, 260-255-4069. Going over the biggest disappointments in college football via ESPN. Give them the credit where the credit is due. I could have probably came up with my own list, but, you know, when you're a one-man band and you have a lot going on, kind of get lazy. But there's that. Michigan State, Jonathan Smith, just 9-15. I don't know what the commitment was at Sparty as far as NIL. Mark D'Antonio had it rolling, and then Mel Tucker, we seen how that shook out. Also seen the Harbaugh news also via the Ravens. I think that's a chicken shit move to fire him after 18 years. He won almost 200 games for your organization, and you're going to fire him. But I think, not that I'm saying Jonathan Smith is bad. I'm not going to say that he was a bad fit at Michigan State. Instead of just saying bad fit, he just didn't win enough. I don't think, had the resources to win enough. I just think that it was just one of those things that was going on. And hold on one second, everybody. So there's that. I'll just go out on a limb and say he just didn't win enough. So there's that. I think that it's very, very interesting, to say the least. I don't think that I don't think that it was he was long for the Michigan State job, just because of the expectation plus reality of it. It just didn't work. I don't think that they were committed to resources there. So we'll see what it shakes out to be, what Pat Fitzgerald can do up there at Michigan State. I think it's going to be fascinating, to say the least, but we'll see how it shakes out. But I don't think anybody wants to talk about Oregon State. They're in that new conference. We'll see how that shakes out. I think that's just blah. I think it's a big blah. Also on the verge of it right now, Texas A&M up 2 on Auburn, 2.4 seconds left. Getting real testy at Fog Allen as well. Houston, Texas Tech in a tight battle right now, and it's going to be interesting. So it brings me to Florida State on this list. Florida State goes 5-7. They hire the Gus Bus. Everything was looking up in Tallahassee. They start the year off. They beat Alabama, and then they just kind of died on the vine. Realistically, they started 3-0, and they were as high as 7th in the AP poll, and then they go 0-5 on the road with an awful loss to Stanford as well. You can't discount that. It's very fascinating, to say the least. A lot of confusion going on in this Auburn A&M game. Just checking this out for the end of it. I think it's going to be fascinating. Did the ball hit the rim? Yeah, the ball hits the rim. That should be a lane violation. He's in the lane. We'll see. We'll see what it looks like, but yeah. So that's the Florida State stuff of it. I think it's very bizarre. And then also after that, they have Maryland on the list. I think Maryland is one of those other schools, kind of like in Michigan with Michigan State. They've been stuck in football purgatory. Michigan State starts out 4-0 and then goes 0-8 the back part of the year. And that they were talking about possibly the firing of Mike Locksley. And I just want to say, hold the phone. How can you fire Mike Locksley when you're not giving him the resources? I think this is a resource-based issue. And the Big Ten is getting a giant TV check. It's just not, there's something that's not adding up with all of the stuff that they are proposing out there when it comes to what they're saying as far as resources versus expectation. I think the big thing is that a lot of these schools don't want to divulge how much resources they're putting in there, and they don't want to divulge the resources because it'll really ramp up expectations or quarrel expectations. That's what I think it really dives into. I'm not buying it. Oh, wow. Is that going to count? Is that going to count? Going to the monitor, Auburn just hits a last-second shot to, I think, beat Texas A&M. I put the tweet out about the upset. Is it going to count? That's what I'm looking for right here. 0.65. The buzzer's off before the ball is. I guess we're going to see it. Ooh, I don't know. I think they're going to count the basket, and A&M's going to lose in shocking fashion here. Also, Kansas down 1. They counted it good on the floor. What's the official ruling going to be? A&M on the side of it in disbelief right now. Kansas just ties it up with TCU. Official review, Rick Barnes victorious. Houston going to be victorious. Under official review, 1.7 seconds left in Kansas TCU. What's it going to be for Auburn? They have not delivered a ruling yet. Waiting on that. Waiting. I don't know if it's going to be clearly visible when the ball left his hand. Going to be a fascinating deal there, but also phone line is open. Number to call 260-255-4069. If you want to jump on in, I'm kind of stopped dead in my tracks right now. Are they going to give this to Auburn? Basket is no good. Wow. Stephen Pearl is losing his mind. A&M. Oh, wow. Auburn just gets completely jobbed. Auburn completely jobbed on that one. Unbelievable. Wow. Auburn refusing to leave the court. This is going to be. I don't know why they have A&M still out there. They are not counting the basket. Wow. We're getting some free basketball at Fog Allen as well. Speaking of them, I guess we'll keep moving in a groove in here, but excuse me, everybody. Also, if you're new here, do us the biggest favor, hit that like and subscribe button. That helps us grow the program. Wow, cannot believe that. Get Texas A&M off the floor, please. So there's no extracurriculars. So with that being said, I think that is fascinating to say the least. Man, Auburn just absolutely getting jobbed on that one. Let me throw this out there. This is kind of a long stream, but also phone line is open if you want to call. We're just talking about the biggest disappointments out there in that were this season in college football. In which also I think all the coaches out there try really, really hard, and it's just something that just doesn't happen. The arena is still packed. I don't know what is going on there. I don't have audio. There's some people starting to head towards the gate at the Auburn basketball arena, but that is interesting. But yeah, there was Maryland. Also, I disagree on their list as well. They are calling the Syracuse season a mirage. I think if Steve Angeli does not get hurt, that is a different story. Also, we're following this Auburn thing very, very close. Texas A&M. I would call it an upset. They beat Auburn at home. Last second shot not counted. Very, very fascinating. Also, phone line is open. Number to call, 260-255-4069. Also appreciate all the A&M fans that do follow the podcast as well. But wow, that was fascinating to see the ending sequence of that game. Appreciate everybody out there watching, all 74 of you. I know it is late. We are up late night having the podcast. Richie will be on tomorrow, I do believe. We'll be able to do some other things with that. They are replaying the last second shot. The A&M folks had a big scare. TCU in Texas, or not TCU in Texas, but TCU in Kansas in overtime currently. Phone line is open. Number to call, 260-255-4069 is the number to call. But Syracuse, they're calling it a mirage. I don't know. I think that once Fran Brown gets a quarterback, he'll be okay. Same thing with Bill O'Brien, completely rebuilding BC and those two programs in the ACC. But wow, I guess the news that's going to dominate the night, Texas A&M sneaks one out on Auburn. I think this game is going to come back later in the season when it comes to some of the stuff. It could come back and haunt Auburn. I do believe so. So there is that. Just looking at some other stuff here. Also, follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well. So there's that. Leave the phones open for a little bit longer as we digest what just happened in the Texas A&M Auburn game. Unbelievable finish, though. Auburn fought all the way back just to get it yanked at the last second. So there is that. Just looking at some other things here. I guess we could run through some college basketball scores, primarily the SEC. Let me get those pulled up for you from tonight's action in conference play. I'm definitely jumping on and watching the Sean Miller press conference because it's going to be fascinating. I think this Stephen Pearl press conference is going to be really fascinating as well. Gig'em Aggies over Auburn on the road. So basically the SEC basketball scores for tonight. Georgia gets blown out by Florida. I think Florida is a lot better than what people think. I think they'll come on down the stretch and probably go on a run. South Carolina beats LSU by 10. I'm sure the Tiger fans are not thrilled about that. Rick Barnes looking better and better at Tennessee, beating Texas. And Coach Miller, I think his press conference is going to be interesting. And then we have the shocking finish late on SEC Network. Texas A&M gets a last-second shot waved off from Auburn to beat them. Texas A&M almost blows a 10-point lead. So there is that. A little basketball to end the night. Also, I'll leave it open for a little bit longer. If you guys want to call, go ahead and call now. Number to call, 260-255-4069. And also programming update. This is typically not the time that we go live. We just have some unique circumstances right now. So there is that. Take advantage of it while you can. A little bit longer show for everybody. Appreciate everybody who is jumped in. So there's that. Also, Sam Livet courtside with Lane Kiffin tonight. Very, very interesting stuff. Don't know if he's going to be the starter, but Auburn, wow, that is a hell of a way to lose a basketball contest. Houston victorious as well. Some notable things. Yeah, A&M, wow, cannot believe that So, phone. Ooh. Sorry about that, folks, but phone line is open. Last call for the phone line, and then we'll get out of here. Number to call 260-255-4069 is the number to call if you want to jump in and go one-on-one. So I think that's kind of where we're at. That pretty much ends all the big time hoops right now. Just went over some college football anecdotes. Some of the teams with disappointing seasons. I guess they're linking the Washington quarterback. I am interested to see see who's going where. It's going to be interesting, to say the least. Number to call, 260-255-4069. Also, the number is on the ticker below. If you're a Texas A&M fan and you want to call in, hop on in. Texas losing to Tennessee in not very dramatic fashion, but it happened. They didn't look good while they were doing it, so there is that. So appreciate all 90 of you watching across the platforms. There is that. I guess with that being said, I guess we'll go ahead and jump off stage left. Appreciate everybody who's tuned in. A little bit longer show tonight. Appreciate all of you guys. And with that being said, do us the biggest favor, hit that like and subscribe button and help us grow the platform. We are on the road to 500 more call-in shows. Thursday night watch party. I should have probably done this at the top of the broadcast, but Thursday night watch party plus post-game call-in show. Friday night watch party plus post-game call-in show. We'll have all of that going on, and then we're going to dive into some college hoops, be talking some of that, transition a little bit, and then when college hoops is over, we're going to go full-on baseball, and then once college baseball is over, we're going to be right back to football. So we're going to try to hit the gauntlet when it comes to college baseball, maybe some Saturday watch parties, just watching a bunch of different games on the college baseball side of things. So we're going to have all kinds of stuff coming up. I've got ideas, plans, things that I've got to put in motion, all for you guys, for as many people that like to come and hang out. Super regionals, College World Series also going to be a big part of the program going forward. We're going to do some of that. And nevertheless, we are always going to have college football. That is the mainstay. We dive into the NFL a little bit. Maybe next Monday, a Steelers watch party as well. Maybe a post-game call-in show as well with that going on. So with that being said, appreciate everybody. Kansas, TCU, neck and neck right now. Lots of highlights on. Big sporting day in the college world. Lots of news, lots of things. I probably missed a ton of stuff that some of you guys wanted to talk about that I just didn't get to, but that's also why we have the phone line open. So there is that, but cannot believe the way Auburn A&M ended. Stephen Pearl's press conference is going to be fascinating. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to Sean Miller's stuff as well. And we will keep the train a-rolling. Had to take Monday off. Had some other business that I had to attend to. But probably this week you're going to get a Sunday show as well, Sunday night show, depending on what the NFL football schedule looks like. You may get a watch party. There's going to be just all kinds of stuff going on with the program going forward in the channel. Going to try to leverage and maximize everything that we do here. So with that being said, appreciate everybody, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good night, everybody.